Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, episode 335. I'm here with James Babb.
Hello.
Nicholas Picone.
What's up, my sniggies?
And Daniel, is it Schmaltz?
You can call me Dan Smots. That's the easiest way to say it.
Dan Smots. Yeah, hey guys, how's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well.
Fantastic.
We're Sundaying it up.
Yeah, I feel that, dude.
I'm a little upset that Otto invited me on the podcast and then he just dips out 15 minutes before the show. This is my podcast now, Otto. Sorry, I'm taking it over.
All
I
right.
am happy to be here. I'm happy to be here among the greats, the great libertarians like Joe Jorgensen and others.
Oh,
Thank you for having me.
Something just died inside James. I could feel it. The earth shook a little bit.
no, Joe's libertarian. She was pretty good,
Yeah,
right?
she
She's libertarian. Compared to the last, the modern era of libertarian candidates, she was the least offensive.
If she wasn't libertarian, I wouldn't have made the videos for her, but I've got my thoughts, but
Now, how do her musical numbers compare to Judge Gray? I think that's really, like how I want to rank them these days.
I mean, she did show up with whiskey, so she's got that going for her.
Nothing. I've got nothing against her personally at all.
I like her.
Yeah, but
Just a weak campaign. Just a campaign of like, let's not be too crazy looking.
I like Joe, and I also don't want her to be president at the same time.
Well, in the words of Dave Smith, it's you're trying to run the 1996 libertarian campaign in 2020 libertarian land. Probably not the best option.
I think that's fair. I mean, could you imagine if Vermin Supreme had been out there, like in a year like 2020, you need a guy with a boot on his head. Like he's made
the only
for
rational thing.
Like it's the time. It's time for someone like Vermin Supreme. You have to just go over the top because that's what we were up against.
Fully believe that they missed a golden opportunity with that one.
Absolutely.
Whether or not he's a perfect libertarian, he is what they really needed in that moment. They needed to go out there and just make a spectacle out of that moment. And so you think you guys voted for Trump. This guy still isn't that crazy. He still makes more sense.
Let's get Vermin Supreme, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump on the same stage and show that the guy with the boot on his head is the only sane one in the room who actually has an idea.
Exactly.
I mean, he is quite brilliant, and there's no denying that he absolutely lives and breathes freedom, and he believes it deeply. It's not a political platform to him. It is a way of life, and he's lived his life accordingly. And I just got to love that.
Absolutely.
So, Dan, did you work on the campaign, or did you just do some videos? Were you like officially a member of the campaign?
Their video guy. Yes, I all the ads all the main ones that they had out, like the crazy ones, and those ones. Like
Jared is
what were the most successful ads?
The ones that got kicked off Facebook. You don't remember us talking about this, Jared?
I'm reminding the fucking listeners, dude. Chill out.
Welcome back to the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast. Dan, thank you for being here. First question, who are you? What have you done? And tell me some things about yourself.
I don't assume everyone's listening to every fucking episode, dude.
Well, I do. God, I give you money.
You're one of the three.
Our 6 listeners are so loyal. They don't miss an episode, okay?
Look, if you're not listening to every episode of this show, you're doing it wrong, and I will fight you.
I mean, that's true, yeah.
It's like a soap
I've been
opera
doing it wrong,
where if you miss one episode, you don't know who's carrying whose baby. Like
right, exactly. It's a soap opera. Exactly.
So, Dan, tell us more about these videos and what was successful and like what kind of success you had with that.
The video. Well, I started out on the Vermin Supreme's team, doing all his videos, and became friends with Spike Cohen and all that, and he carried me into Joe. Because I was still doing videos for Spike after he got put in as the VP nominee, and he convinced them to bring me on as their video guy, and then they abruptly fired me because they didn't like a video that Spike and I put out, and then I put out a video unauthorized that convinced them quickly to change their mind, and then
they rehired you after they fired you.
They did. And I got to give them credit. Like I can disagree with them on many things, but for the most part, they did give me a whole lot of leeway and a whole lot of freedom to kind of put the message out there that I was wanting to put out, and just happened to have Joe's name on it. But all the ideas were basically just me taking the footage that I had shot at the two and putting them together with, crafting the message, putting it out there as something new that I thought was good for the campaign, but more so good for Liberty.
What were your primary selling points that you tried to convey, or what was your primary messaging that you were launching out there?
My primary goal was just to be as radical and as honest as a libertarian as I possibly could. Like, I did not want, they asked me if I could do something on the drug war, and I was like, okay, well, if you ask me to do one on the drug war, it's going to be all the way. It's not going to be
recreational cocaine.
Right. It's not going to be Gary Johnson. Hey, maybe if we're lucky, we can get weed decriminalized.
And we'll put together an advisory board that will gradually look through cases to see if pardons might possibly be warranted in certain situations.
Yep.
So how'd that? So you went hardcore on that drug war message.
Yeah, I went hardcore on the drug war message. We did one on anti-war. We did one on healthcare, which is the least sexy topic and the least fun thing. But I still made it, I think, a little bit interesting to watch.
Right on.
Yeah, and we did the let her speak stuff, a little bit on that, and I don't know, a couple others. I lost count.
So what was it about that initial, or that one video that you made that caused them to fire you initially?
I think it was just too much right out the gate, because it was kind of like in the transition period where they were like, yeah, we'll bring him in. We don't really know like what this guy's all about. He came off Vermin's team, so he's probably a little crazy, whatever. And they're not wrong, but we were kind of, they were kind of like dragging their feet on making stuff happen. It wasn't intended to be anything against the campaign in any way whatsoever. It was only to help it. But we put out one on police brutality while all the George Floyd stuff was going on, and it was pretty extreme. I took Spike's words. I even disagreed with some of the things that Spike said in it, but I took his words, crafted a message around that fit with what he was going for, and he released it without getting the approval because it was all new territory. And I guess some people were just like, that's too anti-cop feeling. And don't quote me on that. I can't say exactly like what their reason was.
What do you mean by too anti-cop? I don't understand.
Just you'd have to go back and watch it. It's been so long now, but
I think we watched it on the show, just for the record.
Yeah,
I just don't understand the concept. I mean, you can't be completely anti-cop. I mean, okay, so go on.
Well, I thought they got rid of you because they couldn't have an actually talented artist doing work for them. Like, it didn't look like some soccer mom who's just found, PDF creator.
I cannot comment to that. I'm
sorry. Not to suck your dick too hard, obviously. But
I appreciate that you think that I'm better than some soccer mom with Adobe Illustrator or whatever. I appreciate that. No, it was cool. It was, I can't complain. I disagree with them on some things, but they gave me a lot of leeway and freedom. And
okay, did the campaign pay their bills?
Yes, they did.
Okay, well that puts them ahead of a lot of other libertarian campaigns.
Yes,
that's for sure.
They paid me, so that's all I know.
Do you remember when Bob Barr stiffed Jim Bovard?
What?
Yeah, Jim Bovard wrote his book for him. And then he got stiffed for the $50,000 fee. If I might have the number wrong, but I think it was $50,000. Yeah, stiffed him.
We had Jim on the show once.
Jim's the man.
He was awesome.
He is, and that not only did he get stiffed, but that cost us a Jim Bovard book. He could have written another book, So anyway, yeah, get you guys paid. Gary Johnson. He had a big problem in Pennsylvania where they had ballot access challenges or whatever. And he used a lawyer, I guess, that was somehow, I don't know, the lawyer had done work for the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, but was now working for the Gary Johnson, ballot defense against some challenges. Anyway, he stiffed the lawyer. The lawyer got stiffed, that had defended him, It's like,
what?
Geez. Yeah, they were these guys are constantly stiffing, So anyway, yeah, you do work for a politician, prepay is my advice.
Right.
But I'm glad it worked out for you, Dan.
Yeah, and it was incredibly resume building. So that was fantastic to kind of get me away from, because I typically do like wedding videos and stuff like that, and it was nice to get into doing some more like fun, dark, exciting stuff, especially stuff that I believe in. So it was good. It's good.
Nice.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
And that got me a lot of followers up until I got banned from Facebook.
So did you get perma-banned from Facebook?
What kind of ban did you get? A super
I
Zuck?
got
A permazuck?
I got so on my show we talk about like controversial topics, and it's I try to be unifying about it. Like we try to talk to people that we disagree with.
What is your
and
show?
The System is Down.
Okay.
Yes, and we've had on like controversial guests like Tom McDonald, Juanita Broderick, David Thibodeau, Kelly Jones, Alex Jones's ex-wife. So we've got some fun stuff. But
That's
the
a
thing
good
that
episode, by the way.
it was good. I asked her if Alex Jones was Bill Hicks in the bonus. If you want the bonus, go on over to our Patreon. Anyway, we've got we just talk about topics, and we try to find commonalities to unite people. And so what got me banned, I believe, I don't know for sure, but we talk about QAnon and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I had a friend of mine on to talk about it, and then that was on the 5th. Then on the 6th, I find out my personal account, my business accounts, I had 20 plus business accounts, my podcast page, my groups, and even my wife's personal account and her business page were all completely wiped out. And she doesn't post anything controversial. She was just an admin on my podcast page, which all I was doing was saying, I don't believe QAnon is real. And let's have that conversation as to why you do. So for me, associating with somebody who believes a very benign theory, in my opinion, my wife associated with her husband and got punished for that too. Like,
So
that's
this
the
was
level
just
of bullshit.
based on content in your podcast? Was this written content or just content in your audio content in your podcast?
Well, I did have that letter of the alphabet and Anon after it in the title of the episode. I also had Epstein in the episode title, so that might have something to do with it. But it's not like, if they just took down the podcast page, okay, whatever. Or at least tell me why you took it down. But like wiping out everything, and I run most of my business on there, so you're directly affecting my ability to even make a living at this point.
Your kid's going hungry, bro.
Yep, my kids are starving right now. Like, I haven't fed them in a week since I got banned from Facebook. All my everything went.
I mean, so they're so hysterical now, you can't even make fun of QAnon without risking a ban? Is that
apparently
is that where we're at?
Apparently, yeah. And I've talked about
Good to know.
worse things. That's why I asked you guys, are you okay with me even saying it on here? Because I will censor myself if you want, but that's like the level of bullshit.
I mean, we've definitely talked about it on here.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had Epstein in
everybody
at least 3 titles
right
for the show. So
Like,
I don't know.
It's like, to all these people that think it's not going to happen to them. It's like, how many Epstein is still alive jokes have you made over the last 4 years? Like,
Hundreds.
Well,
I mean,
exactly.
like, just
what happens when they come for that? Because that's dangerous.
Well, like you said, dude, the Q stuff is so benign compared to some of the other stuff you've talked about. You had that dude on talking about, what is it, like the kids' pedophilia ring in like the private schools over in England, whatever the hell that thing was about. Like that, yeah. I'm surprised you still have a show after that one. And
yeah,
Q is so like nothing to that.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, like I've said this on every show, it's like Q has been made out to be this like giant like white supremacist go kill politicians conspiracy theory. It's like, really, if you're not familiar, let me break it down for you. QAnon, the theory is that Donald Trump is trying to do exactly everything that he said he was going to do when he ran for president, and now he's just trickling it out to some of the people through military ops. Like, that's really all it is, and it's nothing has even happened.
There's a little more to these theories for the QAnon people. I mean, they're expecting a military. The military is going to be stepping in any moment and arresting Hillary.
And they think JFK Jr. is still alive, and
he's
dropping notices to 4chan.
It's crazy, but is that dangerous?
I mean,
it's not. No. Well, no, it's the association. They want to associate anything that's to the right of Joe Biden with terrorism, with white nationalism, with racism, with all that good stuff, you know?
Yep.
Well,
which is real fun for libertarians who come out and, like, I'm sure you guys have felt the need to do the same from time to time over the last few years. Defend the stupid president, Donald Trump, because they're starting all these conspiracy theories about him. If you come out and you say that's actually not true, then you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a white supremacist, and you must be banned.
Right.
Well, I think they're going for, obviously they want to suppress anything, based on keywords, and they're willing to just use their AI. And this is like, all right, what are Trump people into? Dump in the list of keywords, and QAnon's one of them. And they just push it, whatever. Just anybody uses that, just shut them down, or
scattershot. Hey, we won't be missing these people anyway.
Run it through an equation, and every time they did this post, it's a point. And I think we've got a social credit score, just like the people in China are using. But I think like sort of Facebook, or maybe even the companies together are sharing the information, just sort of like, oh, he's you get a ban, it's a point, it's a point, you're in that group, it's a flag, you're in that group, oh, you said QAnon, that's a flag, you did this, and it just becomes a score. So now it's like
GTA stars. If you get enough stars, then they send the FBI to your door.
Or so now they're like, okay, we're in a heightened state of alert due to the inauguration. So shut down everybody who's below a level 74, just right. Like anybody who hasn't proven themselves to be a reliable narrative repeater, we're just going to mute for a week. Right.
Yeah.
Like just to make sure that there's plenty of bandwidth for official narrative.
Right.
And, and these things like, I'm banned from creating any events or groups.
Yeah, this is like what you're getting.
A whole bunch of people just got that one recently.
Right. It seems to be like the second softer wave. Like on the 6th, they took down me and a bunch of other they did take down a bunch of obviously right-wing pages that talk about the QAnon stuff favorably, which I'm not going to lie. We did have a show where a friend of mine, talked about it because when the theory started, I was like, oh, this is just a fun little national treasure conspiracy theory. And I was like, hey, just dig into that. That'll be fun, like sideshow or whatever. And now it's dangerous, apparently. So, yeah, it seems like we're in this new wave now where over the last 24 hours, I've had like 10 to 15 people who were in my group for the show back when we were on the initial Facebook. They've gotten the same strike that you've gotten, where it's like guilty by association once more. You were in that group, so you must be dangerous. Let's shut you up.
I've been collecting people. Remember when people used to be able to just assign you to groups? Like I'm in probably hundreds and hundreds of groups collected over the past decade, right? Yeah. Like who knows, like which of these could be creating the network association that labels me of a threat level, blank.
Well, that was the big when Discord went and did their big purge. It was all related to Boog Boys,
right?
Like if you had anything Boogaloo related, they just went and cleared all the groups of anyone associated with that word.
But like, how many different like Ron Paul groups am I probably in? Probably a bunch of Ron Paul groups, other libertarian groups, anarchist groups, far left groups, just a lot of troublemaking groups. Right.
So the real question in all this, and I'm assuming you guys have come to the same conclusions that I have, is that Trump has been a Democratic operative since day one,
or just an opportunity for them.
I used to think possibly an opportunity, but I'm officially back to plant.
I've been saying
because
same.
What he did to the Republican Party, like they're never going to win an election ever again. Like he's destroyed that party. Like your only viable party at this point is the Democrats.
I take my thoughts even more conspiratorial than that, obviously, because I'm a thought criminal. But if you wanted to create division amongst people, like bring in smooth, suave Barack Obama, brown guy who blows up brown people, but we don't talk about it because it doesn't matter because they're over there. And then right after him, you bring in the most brash asshole of a white dude ever, or orange or whatever you want to call him, and make him stir shit up. And he pulled a bunch of like free-minded libertarian types back to, sucking government's dick and, supporting the GOP. And it worked very successfully to convince them that, hey, government is good, and then got them all riled up. And then, we don't have a brown boogeyman overseas to fight to stir up a war like every other administration. So we'll just make Donald Trump into one himself and start the war here. I think.
Well, that's the beauty of it. They didn't even have to make him into one. He's a guy who's got 2 decades in television of playing the heel between his show and professional wrestling. He's always been the heel. So you just bring him in to be who he is.
Sure.
But I don't understand why the deep state, like, what do they want they didn't get? They got to pretty much get all the contracts, the spending's through the roof. They got George Bush Sr. National Day of Mourning. The military contracts, the bombs have been dropping. I mean, what are they like? What did they want they didn't get?
They got all those Republican senators supporting the left. Like, look how many people turn their back on like Republican values just to side with Democrats against the president.
Side with Trump initially.
I mean, and it's like, it's like, remember when he almost started that war with Iran by assassinating his general, or remember that stuff? And it's like, who's trying to start the war with Iran? Is it the deep state or was it Trump at that? I'm like, he's almost like, look, okay, well, you want to start a war with Iran? Maybe you'll leave me alone if I do this. Like, I don't, whose side was who on there?
It's because they got someone who's good at playing that role. They got a professional heel. He knows how to do it, make it look real. That's all it is.
It doesn't even look that real. Like, nobody is that dumb, right?
I think it's more. I'm more with James, where it's an opportunistic thing.
Fine.
I mean, I think he came in at the right time to capture this sort of populist, anti-establishment, status quo thing, but clearly he's just a grifter and was able to use this to just propel himself to like, well, what work can you do after you're like Donald Trump and you're like, you know, a billionaire or whatever, and you're in movies and all this kind of shit. Like, oh, be
King
president.
of the world is next.
Well, I mean, and every bank on the planet refuses to do business with you now.
That is true.
Well, but I mean, just remember though, Trump's career was, remember his reality shows, his casinos. It was always about the Trump branding, Trump, Taj Mahal. The Trump name is huge. His series about the whole like apprentice thing, it was all about the glitz and glamour, about how important that he is, and that if you are successful, you might be able to enjoy these luxuries like this in the top of my Trump suite. You know, it's like all a Trump commercial. Everything the guy has ever done is a Trump commercial. Why wouldn't his Trump presidency just be just a continuation of a Trump commercial to get his brand out there and build his base? And he certainly did that. So
yeah, and once like 4 years passes and everyone's forgotten about, you know, the fact that they hated him so much, he'll be just like Bush, and they'll be like, oh, he's going to be on Ellen. He's going to be dancing with Ellen. You know?
Oh, I think you have a much rosier view of where we're going to be at in 4 years than I do.
Well, wait till you see how horrendous the tyrant is in 8 to 12 years from now. Just like people look back at George W. Bush and are like, oh, wasn't that cute? Remember that? He was only like waterboarding people and Abu Ghraib and bombing the shit out of Iraq.
Because he didn't say words right.
And
a nice little Texas drawl.
Dude, 6 months from now when Kamala's president, and you know,
right? There's like labor camps.
Brings in Klaus Schwab as her direct advisor.
I would bet that Trump's not going anywhere comfortable after this. I think that they're not going to let him continue to speak unless he is a Democratic plant like Nick, you know, espouses. Like, then they might be like, he'll probably just flower up his message and move on and ignore it, go back to business world. But I think more likely, you know, they're going to be trying to keep him quiet for years.
I think it's going to be the kind of president they just like, when they want some kind of war, they just like point him towards the button, you know, like press that button, old man.
Look,
like, what?
Am I the only one that is terrified that they want to get rid of meat? Like, I'm sorry. That's all I can think about these days.
Who wants to get rid? Is this part of the next?
Oh no, it's one of the biggest
you mean
parts
like
of
the
the Great
AOC,
Reset.
like cows are killing the world? That whole spiel?
No, like just meat in general. Like they want us eating bugs and soybeans
and weeds.
That's it.
Yeah, they said there was something that was like how to eat. Like eating weeds isn't all that bad. Just give it a try. I'm like,
there's a few scientists that have actually suggested we eat people. like eat the remains of our dead.
You
You've been
first.
digging
Didn't the
deep in
president of Venezuela to
dots.
say that his people would eat dirt, and they could
Yeah.
do that? Like when their socialism really kicked in, they're like, yeah, eat dirt, or because they had run out of zoo animals. They had
All the rats were gone.
yeah, it was really getting bad.
dogs.
Like, but
The family
maybe President Camilla Harris will she'll bring in Klaus Schwab as like chancellor. He'll be like, we're gonna do a new
Chancellor
emergency
Schwab.
chancellor position, and
Well, all the houses are going to be made out of trash. They actually have these modular homes that they want us all to live in, basically made out of
Is this the Great
Legos.
Reset, Nick?
Yes, made out of Legos, like giant Legos that are made out of
Oh, wow.
recycled trash, like all
do
the
you think it's
plastics.
Sounds
do you
kind of
think
cool.
it's a coincidence that they are poised to be the law and order heavy
Right.
hand that a chaotic society will demand as shit really hits the fan based on
Yeah.
all the stuff they've been doing? Like if the currency goes wild, if the unemployment really collapses, if the money train runs out somehow, and the rug is pulled out from under all this, well, I don't know.
Schwab.
Yep. And
It's gonna be
going back to
chaos,
my conspiracy theory, if you wanted to, after you got people to libertarians and people to come and join the GOP and be a part of the system and get back into it, how would you piss them off and divide this even more? Better than steal or allegedly stealing an election, or seemingly, at least having some fraud involved in there. I'm not saying the election was entirely stolen, but you can't tell me that everything was on the up and up there.
Well, the techno elite seem very concerned that what we believe, regardless of whether it was rigged or fair, I don't think it's ever fair. I mean, every election's rigged. There's no fair way to gang up on your neighbors, but
Right.
just within their own rules, right? Within their own rules, like who knows what the truth is? But I know that Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, all the techno elites were very concerned that we believe that this is the accurate results and everything's normal and he's the president and inauguration's going to happen, and they're constantly reinforcing everything's okay. Why are you really pushing this?
Yeah.
Wow, they really
It
feel
was
like
any video on YouTube that was even remotely related to the election had that little tag at the bottom that was like,
Yep.
the AP has decided that Joe Biden is the next president.
Well, last I knew, they weren't the ones who decide shit.
Thank you, AP. Can you tell us who's going to be next? Because
Yeah.
clearly it's just up to you.
2024, tell us.
But it makes me, I mean, if that's not enough to make me question the narrative, what would be?
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you didn't let us see the entire 9/11 commission report? I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, nobody testified under oath. Oh,
You,
okay.
yeah.
you mentioned Saudi Arabia 144 times and then said they had nothing to do with it? What?
Nothing
Nothing
to see here. Please go back to your regularly scheduled programming. This is unauthorized. All jokes. We love you, CIA.
Oh man. So yeah, what other kind of ban? Parler was down. That was an interesting takedown due to the Amazon Web Services, right? Now,
Yeah,
do you
I
think
mean,
you think Parler did that on purpose just to get street cred for being they kicked us off, and made all the
lot
headlines?
to lose, though. They
Yeah,
had
I
a
think-
lot to lose at that point because
I don't think
everybody
they
was
were
flooding
on
in.
it.
Yeah.
So did our inside man clue you in on anything, Dan?
No,
inside man.
not yet.
You got a Parlor insider?
Yeah, we won't mention his name because
Yeah,
he
we
doesn't
can't-
want to be interviewed about it.
Yeah, it was nothing
All right.
to
Well,
do with
my
it.
question is, did they intentionally use? I mean, I read the terms of service, which they obviously violated and knew they were violating on that web server. So, what's up with that? Unless they
What did
knew.
they violate?
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know the details. What?
Oh yeah, there's a terms of service you could see. At least it was shared and it looked legitimate for the basically you have to agree to be responsible for the content.
Oh, so not
It's
what
out there.
Facebook and Twitter have to do, just you.
They have
they
they're
probably- they own their
uploading
own servers, I'm
content.
sure.
They're saying, look, this is why we're banning people left and right. We're actively doing this, and if
Well-
you're not doing this too,
No, that's the problem.
won't be one
They
of them.
are. Parlor banned people like crazy, just as bad as any of the other ones. They just banned it differently.
Well, it's impossible to moderate to that degree. I mean, How many accounts are there on Parler? Bless you.
Well, and not to mention the growth that they had was so fast. They could you couldn't
Right.
hire enough people to deal with the influx that you
Yeah,
had.
and the idea
thing
that,
was, look,
and the
that
idea
was-
that Twitter moderates any. Well, so there's a quote of Tim Cook recently saying like, "We'll let Parler back into the App Store if they can get their moderation together." It's like, well, I mean, look at the kind of trash that you allow to permeate through Twitter. I mean,
Meanwhile,
there's plenty
hashtag
of
Hang
that
Mike
there.
Pence was trending on Twitter for
Right.
what, 24 hours.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not
like-
inciting violence, even though it's directly calling for violence.
I don't.
in
I
your
don't.
trending
Not to
tab.
mention all the pedophilia shit. You know.
I don't remember Maxine Waters telling all these people to go and get in politicians'
No.
faces, go to the restaurants where they eat, don't let them have a moment to sleep,
Right.
find their houses. Like
Only Trump
she didn't
calling.
say that.
Only Trump, somewhat shadily calling for peace. But again, not a Trump supporter. But I have not heard anything out of the guy's mouth that sounds like he knew that this was going on at the time.
And it's weird that it did happen before he was done talking. There's that.
Yep.
I don't want to point any fingers or nothing though.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, if you like, I had a few people. I was like, so do you think this is like a false flag or anything like that? And they're like, no, that would take thousands of people being in on it. I was like, no, it would just take the front line of people walking in when the security guards move and everybody else just following suit. Like we're talking about sheep here that are just going along with cult mentality anyway. They're
It's
just going to walk
really
right
easy
in.
to go along with the parade where the
Right.
parade marches. It's really easy to go along with that.
There-
Plus, if I was there to protest anything, like, and security stepped aside and said, "Come on in," I'd probably go on in and
Yeah,
assume that I was
exactly.
going to be okay.
Well, then you're part of a siege, man.
for
right.
Now you're
me.
part of the siege.
It's just a tour
Yeah.
group, really. I mean, basically, I just saw it as an unruly tour group.
Well, it
Just
seemed like
got out
most of them.
hand.
Seemed like most of them are even staying behind roped off lines and stuff. Like that's
were,
not
yeah.
how a mob or a riot functions.
My real question is, I'm one of two things that those police were doing. Either they were told to let them in because they knew what they wanted, or it is also possible that the police were on the side of the protesters from the beginning because
Yeah.
that is Trump's demo. Look at the number of people in that group. Like every arrest I've heard about is someone who's either in the service or a former cop.
But you would think if they were like
That's his people.
if they were acting against the Capitol and just letting him in because they were for Trump, I don't know. I feel like they would be a little bit more discreet about it, like because they don't want to lose their job.
Dude,
That's
the
something to
thin
look at.
blue
Have these
line,
cops
the
lost their
thin
job
blue
or
line
not?
trumps all. Nobody loses their job for supporting the thin blue line. Nobody would ever lose their cop job because they like give a pass to another cop.
Yeah,
Sure. Well, I mean,
guarantee
like, have any of these cops that it seems like they just allowed the protesters to come in, have any of them been identified or lost their jobs or been questioned as to what their motivations were?
No, because they gave the people in charge exactly what they wanted. Either way.
I know there was one guy, there was one black guy that I think got fired because he put on a MAGA hat, like while they were storming the Capitol or whatever. He put on a MAGA hat, and it's hard to tell whether he did it in like support or whether he was like trying to like blend in and not.
Maybe out of fear.
Was afraid.
Well,
yeah.
what I can tell
Like maybe
you
they
is
won't beat me up. I'm a black guy, but
Right.
if I wear their stupid hat, I'll
Yeah.
I can
He
tell
was
you
also he was like in full security guard getup or Capitol
Mm.
Police or whatever the fuck.
the of the law enforcement people that I know and have close relationships with, which isn't many but is enough. There's a side that they're on, and it isn't the state in this regard.
Sure.
I mean, what do you guys think about cop versus cop out there? I mean, doesn't
You mean
really
Biden
matter.
versus
I-
Harris?
It's
I'm
it's
not gonna
authoritarian
shed a
versus
tear.
authoritarian.
Right? Like if cops want to, if government storms the government, I mean, I'll sit back and watch. Just let me know.
Sure.
You know, I guess they'll let me know which one to pay taxes to.
Well, so, is there anyone on the who wasn't a protester that was killed during this?
I believe there was a
cop,
cop
right?
hit with a fire extinguisher.
Okay. Who'd
So,
also had like a
I don't think
pre-existing
any. I don't
condition, by
think
the
any
way.
innocents were hurt.
Yeah, that was because that's the thing. Like they keep talking about this bloody riot that killed some people. The last I knew, the only people killed were the people going through the building that you shot at.
Well, there supposedly that guy tasered himself in the nuts. Now
There was a guy that tasered himself in the nuts. There was also there were also like a
My
bunch
hero.
of like just old boomers that died from like heart issues. Just
Hey,
caught
did
up
the
in
guy die
excitement.
from being tasered in the nuts?
Well, listen, it's
Yeah.
been widely
That's awesome.
repeated, so we can repeat it because it's repeatable. It's been repeated. The closest thing I saw in any kind of like mainstream news source was that there was a guy that died, and it was an accidental taser discharge. Did not say in the nuts.
Oh,
Okay, now
I hope so. He's my new hero.
why not embellish it? You know what,
Yeah.
true or not? Like it's, I
it
think
really
it's
matter?
worth repeating.
We're not going to
like,
kink shame, guys. We're not going to
I
kink
was gonna
shame.
say right in the asshole.
Right on taint.
and it should be a cautionary tale for people to know how to properly carry a taser. Right?
Not in your nuts. Yeah.
wear at least some kind of
Not in the front
like rubber cod piece just to be on the safe side. You know, just
I read an article that said it might be true. I don't need. Who knows what is and isn't true anymore? But some lady was carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and she got trampled to death at the march.
That sounds
Oh,
like
wow.
some onion stuff there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
It does,
sounds
but
like
I
the
found
Hard
it on
Times
multiple
or
sites.
something.
Snopes. I actually Snopesed it. Not that I believe Snopes, but they said it was like there were like some hazy matters on whether or not she was carrying the flag or something. I'm like, I choose to believe it because
Well,
that's hilarious.
well, we do know for sure
Rest
that
in
there
peace.
was Antifa there, and that just sounds like the perfect troll job to throw a "Don't Tread on Me" flag over someone that has got trampled to death.
Well, there was a picture of a woman carrying a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. That's all that was in the article. It didn't show her trampled body holding, like clutching it or anything like that.
Well, no, it would have been. I mean, to me, I'm imagining
Over
the
her
troll
face,
like
yeah.
as the Antifa members are
Please,
walking out, they see the
Sure.
person trampled, and they just rip it out of some other person's arms or off the floor
No,
where
it
it got
should have
dropped.
been like no. I think she was actually trampled by a police horse. That's the way the story. Let's change the story to
Why
she
not?
was trampled by a police horse
Police.
Why not?
while trying to back the blue. Right.
Just-
Like,
Officer Ed.
Does Police Horse sound like an old school punk rock band?
Yeah,
Like
kind of.
like Police Horse, Black Flag.
Well, like, I
God,
don't know, yeah, it sounds like a hardcore band.
I gotta go.
Hardcore punk rock covers
I
up
gotta
the
go
police.
I'm gonna start Police Horse now.
Police Horse.
I want to go on a tour with Neckbeard Death Cult or whatever the hell it is.
So do you guys think that there's like, I don't know, like as little as what I've seen actually occur at the Capitol, it seems like all the inflammatory stuff that they put out about it has created more confusion and created even more questions about this thing than even like, I don't know, like the LA shootings and stuff like that.
well, they brought in
Las
20,000
Vegas shootings.
troops. Okay, so they're obviously like, oh man, like maybe the town folk are unruly. You know, like, I mean,
Sure.
that's a lot of. Isn't
It's
that
a
a
lot.
lot of troops even for DC? I mean, 20,000 troops they've got.
Was it 20,000? Was that the number of National Guard they brought in? It
That's-
was in the tens of thousands.
That's
yeah.
a number I saw. I can't confirm,
Yeah.
but
And they were like sleeping on the ground in the Capitol.
Yeah.
You know,
For me, the least conspiratorial take I can take on the whole thing is you've got all these like 30, 40-year-old people who, we've been pretty comfortable as a country since like the 80s. We haven't had too much go on outside of 9/11, but you've got bread and circuses galore, more so than ever with the internet. And then, we lock down and take away the bread and circuses for, a year, like concerts and sports and stuff like that. And you've got all this culture that's grown up as LARPers who have never, like, including myself, who have lived online and pretending like, they're going to be this big bad army or whatever if shit goes down. And then you lock them up, take away their entertainment, and then you do some shady shit around their politician, and shit like this happens. And
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean,
they were
it's
focused. At
predictable.
least they weren't burning down AutoZone. They were at least focused on the real problem here, which is the government.
Well, I'm gonna throw some shade on this because the thing that pissed me off the most in this entire situation, I've listened to the Fifth Column for years, mostly because I love Camille Foster, and he's just an intelligent guy who has interesting thoughts. But listening to Michael Moynihan and fucking what's his name there,
Matt
Welch, and their take on it, I'm like,
Is
look,
it just completely statist and
oh, dude, it was
status quo?
how dare you do this to our beloved institutions? This is sacred. Like I expect that on CNN, but
I
like,
love it
I'm
when they
sorry.
gush all over it as when their religion
so-
just becomes so apparent.
What did Camille say in response to this?
Camille was very quiet during the thing, and because they are his friends, I'm sure his tongue was perhaps bit. I will believe that. I stopped listening to the podcast on it. I can't deal with any more of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, just the blatant line.
Like, guys,
for me, well, I expect it from Moynihan. Moynihan is there for crap takes. Welch is usually at least okay.
Welch is, he's.
Yeah. But he was almost worse than fucking Moynihan this time around. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't listen to you guys. It's like that whole.
If we need a status, we'll get Kyle in here. Okay.
Yeah.
I still want Kyle's take on this. I haven't really heard it yet. I was hoping he would be on.
Did you guys see the letter from the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
I think I did.
I guess because everyone was like, "Yeah, the military, they're gonna come in and they're gonna take over and it's gonna be okay." And the military's like, "Wait a minute, guys," and they're like, they sent out that letter, and just to remind everybody, it said, "In response to the assault on the U.S. Capitol, blah blah blah, Joint Chiefs of Staff address." Anyway, service member, we must embody the value. Anyway, we'll support and defend the Constitution. Anyway, they basically just said, "No, we're still obeying. We're still on the
Well, here's the problem with that. I took that as something very different. To me, what I read in that was the brass at the top saying, "Look, we will hold you down if you try and act out." I'm not saying there's some big conspiracy.
To who? Directed at who?
Let it not be dismissed that so many of those people in that group of people for Trump were servicemen of one variety or another. I 100% felt like that was them saying, "Look, guys, don't go getting any fucking ideas. Stay the fucking line because we will end you."
Yeah, basically,
it was a threat to their own people.
The redcoats are saying, like, don't even think about joining the rebel team.
Yeah, it seemed like it was coming from the top down, not for like us people saying we're on board. It was to remind their slaves that we still own you, and you will do what we say.
Well, that's what you bought into.
Sadly. Like I said, and having had the conversations with law enforcement that I have.
Somebody I saw pointed out the last time they saw a letter from the Joint Chiefs of Staff was associated with Operation Northwoods. Okay, now I thought this was
go figure.
Like, presumably there's been other letters from the Joint Chiefs of Staff since then, right? But Operation Northwoods was the one where they wanted to do a false flag attack on Florida, blame it on Cuba to start a war. Like,
Well, see, here's the beauty of this one. Like, it didn't even have to be a false flag. Everyone knew what was eventually going to happen in that situation because they've gone on enough. They've stormed enough capitals this far, like to as their, activism.
Didn't we just have this happen 2 years ago at Brett Kavanaugh with Elizabeth Warren outside screaming, "Hey, get in there and storm the Capitol," essentially?
Look, what's good for the goose, the gander will fuck. I'm just saying.
It's like, you guys had this thing that was proven to be a conspiracy theory in a court of law that you pushed down everybody's throats for months, and then you riled them all up, and then you brought them out to the Capitol. They went in, they made some noise, and then they got arrested. Sounds familiar, but this time it's insurrection.
But Dan, that's not how people work. You repeat it till they believe it, and then you don't ever address it again.
Yep.
Brett Kavanaugh was a rapist because they said it enough times.
Brett Kavanaugh was a rapist.
Go find anyone on the left who doesn't still believe that that's true.
Yep.
You won't find it because they said it enough. It happened.
I'm not saying he's not a rapist. I'm saying if you believe,
wasn't he a judge?
Court of law matters. Like, you should probably just let that one go.
I mean, clearly he liked fucking young black men. That's how that works.
Hey, I'm not kink shaming, once again. You do you, Brett.
3 years of the whole Trump. That's my whole thing with all of this. It's like 3 years of the Trump of like blaming Trump for Russia.
Right.
And I'm sorry, he can't say that he was fucked over out of the election. Hillary's been doing it the entire time he was in office, and he can't say it.
In 2016, they said that Russia bought enough Facebook ads to tip an election, and that's election meddling. But Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey can take Donald Trump off their platforms entirely, but that's not election meddling.
Talk to anyone who does actual advertising, and they'll tell you how useless all of those advertisements to Russia were. That's not how advertising works.
But it's really important to have, our techno elites in America deciding who will rule us rather than a foreigner deciding who will rule us, I guess.
I mean, I personally think that Trump lost because he handled the election poorly and allowed something that was inherently going to make more leftists vote happen. Now, that being said,
you mean mail-in ballots?
Yes.
I'm sorry. He allowed it?
I don't have to get off my ass to vote. Yes, more people are going to vote.
No, yeah,
Nick voted for the first time this year.
How do you blame Trump for that, though?
Because you let it happen.
Well, or maybe you could blame
all of those court cases he should have been bringing back then that he tried to bring in the last minute. He also told his people, "No, go vote on the day. Don't vote now. Don't send in early voting."
Right. Well, the Democrats are known for their ground game about getting volunteers and getting people registered and getting getting
all the Democrats, including
people.
Donald Trump.
And they probably saw this. They probably immediately saw strategically the advantages of this vote by mail thing, and they ran with it. They're like, all right, we're going with that hard, and they did it. They they got everybody to mail in a ballot. How easy is that? You could probably just
think
go.
Trump was saying not to do it because he was concerned that they'd be tearing up those Republican ballots.
Well, they're going to do it the day of anyways if they're going to do it, so what the hell does it matter?
I guess it's just easier if it's like,
who knows, right?
already in the USPS office.
But therein lies my point, and once again, adding to my belief that he was a plant from the fucking beginning. Like, obviously, that was going to happen, and he told his people not to do it. Don't participate in this.
So what, do you think, then you think the whole COVID thing was also orchestrated by Donald Trump?
I mean, what do you mean orchestrated? What do you mean orchestrated?
Well, the whole reason that we had these mail-in ballots was ostensibly because of COVID, right?
Right. What Trump did was make Obama fund that lab in Wuhan to do that experimental research to add functionality to certain viruses. And
how deep are we going here, Nick? That's what I want to know, dude.
Donald Trump is directly responsible for giving that back COVID.
Dude, it doesn't even have to go. Like, we have new coronaviruses every year. Like, it was SARS-CoV.
This is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, man.
SARS-CoV-20.
Never letting this one go.
They've already come out saying, like, I've seen some reports that are referring to COVID as like a childhood virus or something like that. Like, it's just like a common cold. Like, they're literally saying that in the news now. It's like, and
that's the real conspiracy. How quickly did that change?
Right.
You've got Cuomo in New York, so we got to open things back up. The mayor of Chicago, I heard, was doing it.
Yep.
They're
acting like they're the arbiters of, hey, we need to save you guys from this dangerous lockdown that we've been forcing down your throats.
And all they did was wait for Trump to be impeached. That's all they had to do. Get what they wanted there.
Well, and now if I was a politician, I'd sit back on my throne and be like, all right, it's time to reopen. If you feel your business needs to reopen, present your case to your sovereign and bear your gifts to his majesty, and he shall determine if ye shall open. And just have the special interest groups line up to gradually get reintroduced into society.
Well, but they're all trying to get past these new, I can't remember what they're called, but basically like the stakeholder laws, which is basically the whole conscious capitalism thing where it's all the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, sustainable development is the word I like to use because that's the thing that's been the commonality between all of the different names for Agenda 21. It's also it's all the Great Reset. It's all that whole thing. Yeah. They've just been playing the long game until they can push it into place. As far as like, doesn't even have to be
living in pods, right, Nick?
It doesn't have to be a. If you ever listen to Klaus Schwab, what he actually said, it's 2030. You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yay!
That is their goal. Everything in your life is going to be rented from someone else,
except for those that have Bitcoin.
In other words, them.
John McAfee will do okay. The rest of us
he'll be dickless, but
that because I mean, every supervillain at some point in the movie blurts out the plot, right? Like they always have to give themselves up at some point. They can't just sit there and be evil. They have to tell you about being evil so they can really get off on it.
You guys ever seen the movie Gamer? It was Gerard Butler's. I like it because it has Ludacris in the movie. But was it Michael C. Hall? I think is the guy's name.
The guy from Dexter.
Yeah, and he plays the villain in the movie, and he's my favorite villain ever because in most movies they give you like villain with like a goal, like he's gonna rob a bank or he's going to steal a piece of art or something. In this movie, the villain's goal is just owning the minds of everybody on the earth. He just wants total mind control of every human being alive. Just
Reasonable.
like the most cartoon villain ever. He has
like a Mark Zuckerberg or
and that's exactly who they try
it's
to make
that
him
kind
out to
of-
be. Like his character is absolutely Mark Zuckerberg, and he has a dance number where like he's controlling a bunch of zombies. Like the whole idea is basically he created Second Life, but instead of like using computer avatars, like they turned it into you smash up what is it, Second Life with the Running Man. And so like all of those first person shooters that you do, you're controlling an actual dude out in like a play zone, and he's shooting at other actual dudes controlled by other people, and they use felons to give you people to kill and shit like that. It's real wild movie, but like the technology the guy uses to control the avatars in the game, like he's eventually going to have every human being on the planet's going to be the whatever it is that makes their brains do it, release into the air so everybody on Earth does it. It's such a terrible
So
movie,
this
but
is-
a
this
great
is Schwab's
concept.
Actual plan. Or
Well, and
what?
that's the reason I said it is because Schwab is the equivalent of that guy. Like he's so insanely like just ridiculous of a villain that you can't even fathom that he's real, and he's totally real.
And I love the way he uses all the popular keywords about like the environment and inclusiveness.
Well, that's because he's the one who started it. Like
is this
you go
guy?
back to the
I don't even
70s,
know.
he is the guy that started the whole thing. It's Davos. It's the what is the actual name? The World Economic Forum. And it's basically all of the wealthiest people in the world saying how they're going to make the planet a better place.
But what they're really looking at is like the other like 2 billion people that aren't on the internet yet and going, how can we get them in our corral? How can we get them numbered and registered?
Speaking of corral, did you guys hear
monitored,
about Bill Gates?
and banked?
You mean, what is it, the
Doesn't he own like the most farms now or something?
114 million acres, wasn't it, that he's bought up now?
Sneaking around buying up all the farmland too. So
Well, that's part of the plan. That's
promising.
That's,
Is that how they
dude,
get rid of the meat, Nick?
It's gonna be like that episode of South Park where Randy's high, going around killing, like murdering the cows because he can't afford to take care of them or whatever. We're gonna have video of Bill Gates out there just like slaughtering cows all over the.
Well,
place
here's the
so
thing,
that they
Jared.
don't
If-
fart.
To help poor
Just like No
starving
Country for Old
farmers.
Men,
they
but
can-
with the
That's
cows.
right.
Jared, why would you listen to what I have to say about it? Go and listen to their podcast, The Great Reset, and they'll explain in great detail exactly what they're going to do to the world.
Is that a thing?
It is absolutely a thing.
If it
I'm
won't
going to
make
go
you
look
buy
that up immediately.
Bitcoin, I don't know what will.
Exactly.
Already
Seriously.
ahead of you.
Like,
Wow.
and that's like, well, that's just a conspiracy. I'm like, no, it's an advertising campaign.
Yeah, they're
That's all it
they're
is.
so proud of this. They're like blushing over how great this is going to be.
And it's everything that they've been using global warming to do and failing at.
Yeah.
The reason we have Agenda 2030 is because they didn't hit Agenda 21. They couldn't corral human beings in well enough.
We'll get there.
And
don't
so
worry, guys.
they're using
Move
this
goalposts.
to accomplish all the goals that they wanted to
Damn,
do
you
with
sound
global
pretty
warming.
black pill, dude.
Well, there's this interesting merger now between sort of the COVID lockdown-y thing and the climate thingy. And they're like the lockdowns, and they're like, okay, we've established we can lock down for the greater good. Okay, well, now what about our climate greater good? Shouldn't we lock down blank now?
Well,
Like everything's on the
dehumanizing.
table now.
Well, and the thing is, the merger is because it's all the same people.
Exactly.
It was
right?
always the same people. They
What's
used
the
to
ne-
use
you
it
know
for what it
like
was.
if and that you've proven what people will accept.
Yes.
They've accepted this, so maybe
Wha-
they'll accept.
We can scare them into that
this.
too.
Whether
and
or not-
dehumanize them
like-
further.
Whether or not they planned COVID, they opportunisted the shit out of COVID,
Oh, yeah.
and they managed to give them what they could never get out of climate change, and that's
total control.
That's the Great Reset as a word stems from the fact that they had to come up with an advertising campaign for the old thing to rebrand it for what they're doing now.
Well, I think part of it is also getting people on the dole, right? Unemployed and dependent on a check, right? Like this is part of the strategy. Like, don't worry about all the destruction of the economy. We're actually wanted to, like, it's better to get people like in our system, getting our payment through our electronic payment system.
Well, it's all
right? and then we'll assign them to something as needed. But let's just get everybody used to.
Well, speaking of which,
there's our money through our own new digital currency.
Yeah.
It's Fabian socialism.
Metered,
like
right?
you've got the feeder class, and then you've got the leader class.
Well, this is this whole thing where everyone's begging for these stimulus checks now, right?
Yeah.
But that's all. That's all part of it. As long as they can keep those up, that's
Right.
great.
Well, let's take this on over to the after hours where we can talk about the new $1.9 trillion proposal that Lord Biden is presenting.
Those are rookie numbers.
So yeah, thanks for everybody for coming on. Reminder that we have T-shirts on libertariancountry.com. Let's see if I can remember the codes. If you put in code PRL, you save 10%. If you enter PRL2 and you spend more than $50, I think we give you a 20% on that. We also have a Patreon, which we'll be heading on over to after this. For as little as $1 a month, you can get access to that, and you'll get all our after hours episodes.
But if you're a good person, you do what I do, and you pay $5 a month.
If you're not a schmuck. No, just kidding. But yeah, we do give you a T-shirt if you sign on for $10 a month. So that's cool.
Don't make me up it, bro.
Huh?
Don't make me up it.
Dude, do you want the T-shirt?
So you want this T-shirt? You want this good stuff here?
Come get it.
We're also brought to you by Conversations About Freedom by Moral Bob. It's a podcast. Check that out. And I think that's it. Until next time, live free.
Or die.
Die.
Preferably